If there was a time where political courage, call it a hero, would be needed, I think now is it. Instead of going along with everything the White House does, perhaps some Republicans could stand up for what's right here and some, I can say, have spoken out. We showed you a few of those clips earlier in the program, but nobody really has gone with the neck completely out right now, talking about the outrage, constitutional crisis, Nixonian times that folks on the other side of the aisle have, and I believe, at least for myself, are warranted. New York Times, if you saw it today, says that hero could be the person on your screen, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. He, of course, is the guy who wrote the letter recommending the firing of Comey that we've discussed at length this week. The Times editorial board just wrote an open letter to Rosenstein, and I want to read a small portion of it. It's rare that any single person has to bear as much responsibility for safeguarding American democracy as you find yourself carrying now. Even before President Trump's shocking decision on Tuesday to fire the FBI Director James Comey, a dark cloud of suspicion surrounded this president. Given the sterling reputation you brought into this post, including a 27-year career in the Justice Department under 5 administrations and the distinction of being the longest-serving U.S. attorney in history, you no doubt feel a particular anguish and obligation to act. Few public servants have found themselves with a choice as weighty as yours between following their conscience and obeying a leader trying to evade scrutiny. Elliot Richardson and William Ruckelshaus, who believed nobly in Watergate, come to mind. You can add your name to this short, heroic list. Yes, it might cost you your job, but would save your honor and so much more besides. All right, I want to bring in our panel right now. Richard Brodsky, former Democratic New York State Assemblyman, now a senior fellow at Demos and a professor at NYU and a self-appointed hero to the masses. Bill O'Reilly, former Republican strategist who is now a member of the Conservative Party. Yes, in abundance at this table, as is Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent.
I've eaten a hero before.
Yes, okay.
I didn't lay a glove under Bill O'Reilly.
You know, we mentioned politicians. Also, we've had times, not just Nixonian times, McCarthy jumps to mind. I want to play a clip here. Go back to the 50s, during the height of the Red Scare, Edward R. Murrow, he took on Senator Joe McCarthy. Take a listen.
The line between investigating and persecuting is a very fine one, and the junior senator from Wisconsin has stepped over it repeatedly. His primary achievement has been in confusing the public mind as between the internal and the external threats of communism. We must not confuse dissent with disloyalty. We must remember always that accusation is not proof, and that conviction depends upon evidence and due process of law.
Again, that was the time before the 24-hour channels and everybody screaming for a soundbite. It took guts to do what he did, and in many ways, like he had the voice of God and the anchors back then, he was the top of the list, and that led to the beginning of the end of Mr. McCarthy, of which history looks kindly upon. I just want you guys to take a listen to what President Trump said today on Lester Holt from NBC News. I want to play a clip because it's stunning, given the last 72 hours of news, what he said so brazenly.
Let me ask you about your termination letter to Mr. Comey. You write, I greatly appreciate you informing me on 3 separate occasions that I am not under investigation. Why did you put that in there?
Because he told me that. I mean, he told me that.
He told you weren't under investigation with regard to the Russia investigation?
I've heard that from others. I think.
Was it in a phone call? Did you meet face to face?
I had a dinner with him. I said, if it's possible, would you let me know, am I under investigation? He said, you are not under investigation.
Okay. In the same conversation, per Donald Trump, forget about that, he totally obliterated and did 180s what he sent staff out to say 3 times as to the timeline of events, why Comey was terminated, at whose insistence, etc. He said, oh, no, I was going to fire him all along. I wanted to fire him. Okay, then forget everything that Rosenstein got basically blamed for and threatened reportedly to even resign yesterday as a consequence. Forget all that for a minute. In the same conversation where Trump says he meets with Comey, he talks about Comey's future employment and then says, by the way, am I under investigation? I don't believe for a minute that Comey said no. But even if he did, think about that. You're the President of the United States. I'll say it again. You're the President of the United States. It's like a mob shakedown saying, by the way, you like to keep your job? Am I under investigation? Forget that it's not done.
It is much to your
Oh my
credit
God.
that you are trying to parse this in reality terms. You're right.
It's our world.
Yeah, aha, it isn't. And the world that President Trump is working in now, it turns out, may be a self-created reality that we don't share and is not subject to rational analysis.
You might be right, but I'm not going to try and put anybody on the couch tonight because I'm not equipped for it. You could be 100% right, narcissism, psychosis. I mean, there's all these things. I've spoken to people on this subject, but for tonight, I'm talking about the rule of law. And as a rule of law, Bill, the idea that a president believes nothing applies to him anymore, and he tried a farce that has been completely disproven. He fired Comey because Comey was asking for more money, more resources to investigate the Russia probe, and he didn't like here that Comey, in effect, said no, at a press conference, and then he said that he was nauseous over what he may or may not have done in the handling of it. This is not a banana republic. We can't do this. When, and I'm not putting you on the spot, but politically and practically, when do Republicans say, time out? Why would any of us not want an independent prosecutor on this thing? Why do we want to own this thing? Let's like get the disinfectant out, like what Chris Shays was saying here, like he wants to take a bath. Who wants to lie down with this anymore?
Right. I mean, first of all, I just want to say, I think there were reasons to dismiss Comey. Absolutely. And I think it should have been done at the beginning of the year. I think his inconsistent handling of the two investigations in the election was wrong, and that was enough to knock him out. But that's not why Trump got rid of him. Absolutely. I also don't believe that Comey said no to Donald Trump. I just don't buy that narrative. There's a forget morality, forget the Constitution, forget the rest of it, pure politics. Let's just talk pure politics. There's an extraordinary opportunity on the table right now for brave Republicans to go in there and say, we need an independent president. They should be taking it.
Why aren't they?
They should be taking it because they're afraid of the base.
They're
afraid of the base.
Listen to what he said.
But you know what? Some are, in some red districts, some are. So I buy the logic if you're in a purple state, you could be in some trouble. If I'm a Pennsylvania Republican. No. I'm seeing the Jeff Flakes of the world in Arizona, which is red.
The general election.
Share of glory.
It's about the primaries. This is about a Republican Party where the Trump vote is big enough in many states to take otherwise sane people and make them say, I'm not getting involved yet. Bill, am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. And I rarely agree with the Times editorial page, but this is where you put your career on the line. You go ahead and take that risk and you say, we need an independent prosecutor. We need answers here. The answers may come back that there was no proven collusion, but the public needs to be sure.
For all our kidding around, remember, this is a guy who resigned from the Republican Party over Trump.
Absolutely.
And he leads by example, and it's worth noting.
And Andrew, the next part to this, just to amplify what Shay says, I think he's 100% right. No matter what he does, he can't put the genie back in the bottle, meaning Trump. This is going to get out. And as I understand it, and I spoke to a guy who had a very prominent position at the FBI a few years back, no longer with them, the outrage at the Bureau, at his representation that everybody hated Comey, they didn't like him, it couldn't be farther from the truth. The acting director testified that today, that he called Comey a showboat today, pot me kettle. We're going to start seeing leaks, I think. I don't think it's in the best interest of America, but we're going to start seeing leaks if we don't see a special prosecutor or, now tell everybody the name that we're hearing potentially that was floated by Senator Mike Lee to be the new FBI director. And you know what? I think it's brilliant. The Republican senator from Utah. Merrick Garland.
That's such a bogus proposition. That opens up a key position on the DC Appeals Court that Republicans would love the chance to fill. That is do not fall for that head fake. The leaks, it's going to go beyond leaks. It's going to be a full flowing river that's coming out of the intelligence services. And one of the reasons that Trump has indicated that he did fire Comey for is because Comey refused to reorient the FBI off the Russia investigation and towards the leak investigation. And I don't think there's much of an appetite within the FBI to focus in on the leaks. I think you're going to start seeing a lot more information coming out from those entities.
A little surprised, by the way, under testimony that the acting FBI director says they have all the resources they need. In the same week that it became public that Comey was asking for more resources, and he had to be specific because you have to articulate where budgetarily you want the men and material.
Well, he's also the acting FBI director, and they're looking for a replacement acting FBI director while they're still looking for an FBI director. So maybe there was a little bit of CYA on his part on that front.
In the end, the most interesting thing to me is not the conspiratorial stuff, which I agree with, not the legal stuff, not even the political stuff. It's the sheer incompetence of the way in which they rolled this out.
Well, I want to talk about that's my next segment. In fact,
As
we're
I was
gonna talk
saying, in
about
our
that,
next
right.
segment,
yes.
we
yes.
can get to that.
Before we move on, the fact that the Times had to write an open letter to Rosenstein as the only person available who can actually, that to me is the biggest indictment. That there is no Republican oversight, there is no congressional oversight, and that we let the special counsel, is it the special counsel or the special prosecutor law expire in '99?
Same thing.
And so there is no mechanism for this other than the FBI, which is now
to put an
potentially
exclamation
corrupted.
point on your, to put an exclamation point on what Andrew just said, who would prosecute now? It sounds, well, what do you mean, Rich? A smoking gun emerges, and you don't want to go through the political realm of impeachment or whatever else. Who would prosecute in such a politicized and partisan and chilling environment that's been created over, my God, the last 110, 15 days? Think about that as we go to break here. That's where we are right now with this Attorney General, obviously this President, and what has turned out to be this reconfigured Justice Department. All right, coming up next here, Mr. Brazzi touched on it. Double talk, confusion, miscommunication, pretty much explains how the White House tried to explain the Comey firing, jumping the gun.